Manish Tiwari and Subramaniam Swamy, welcome. Thanks for joining me on the Newshour debate. We are now live. Manish Tiwari, people in Germany are called Germans. People in England are called English. People in America are called Americans. And it's so simple, therefore, says Mr. Bhagwat, that people in Hindustan should be called Hindus. What's blasphemous with that?
Well, for the simple reason, Mr. Goswami, that it is completely and absolutely wrong. If you read Article 1 of the Constitution of India, it says India is Bharat, and that is a union of states. So where is the word Hindustan being used? So therefore, if at all India has an identity, it is as Indians. Or if we have an identity which is to be used in a colloquial or in a vernacular sense, then the identity is really Bharatiya. So therefore, I do not understand as to where this terminology...
Are you taking that line of argument, Mr. Tiwari? Mr. Tiwari, are you taking that line of argument because you concede that you would be completely on the defensive if anyone were to quote to you the 1995 judgment of the Supreme Court which says Hinduism and Hindutva are a way of life? So using that, the RSS and the BJP have a credible defense in the Supreme Court's views on the matter. Mr. Tiwari, so are you taking that first line of argument because you know you'll be smashed if Subramaniam Swamy were to quote the Supreme Court judgment?
Well, I think, Mr. Goswami, if you were to read the Supreme Court judgment,
yes,
the Supreme Court judgment refers to Hindutva as a way of life. But it does not refer to the fact that everybody who lives in India, essentially has to be called a Hindu. That is not the definition of what the Indian identity is. The Indian identity, as circumscribed by the Constitution of India, is either Indian or it is Bharatiya. So therefore, I do not know as to why Mr. Mohan Bhagwat has chosen to reopen this debate.
Right. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe it's because he wants to put the Modi government on the back foot, Mr. Swamy. Maybe that's the whole intention, to keep some kind of a lever on Delhi because Nagpur is missing the control that it was probably promised before the elections.
Well, these are surmises. First of all, the word India is actually a garbalized Greek version of Hindu. And even today, China refers to India as Hindu. And sometimes Hindu Go means Rashtra.
Sir,
so if you,
Indians across the world are not referred to in religious terms as Hindus, which you may want them to be. But in national terms like Indians. Dr. Swamy, Indians have their own national identity. The term Indian is what is a pan-Indian expression that defines our citizenship and our culture, which you want to reduce to religious terms.
First of all, there is no such thing as Hindu religion. It is a Sanatana Dharma, and there are other associated religions, and that's why the Supreme Court is forced to define. I mean, not Supreme Court, the Constitution is forced to define Hindu as someone who is not a Muslim or a Christian or a Parsi.
Sir, Hindustan is not the official reference for India. Give me a counter to that. Hindustan is not the official reference for India.
Hindustan, well, now you're getting to the meat of the matter. As far as Bharatiya is concerned, that is a republican identity. It's a part of their citizenship. When it comes to identity of a nation, it is Hindustan. And those who live in Hindustan are therefore Hindus. Now, in the Britain recently, the Prime Minister said that Britain is a Christian country.
So why are you laughing, Manish? Why are you laughing, Manish? What is laughable about what Subramaniam Swamy has said?
Well, if Dr. Swamy has completed, then I will articulate my response.
No, go ahead. I just want to know why you were sniggering when he was speaking there.
Well, first of all, I was not sniggering. I was listening to Dr. Swamy very carefully, and to you also. The short point is that both Indian and Bharatiya are religion neutral. In fact, the word Bharat, when it is split up into two, means light and knowledge. That is the Bha part of it, and the Rath part of it is that you're devoted. So essentially what Bharat means is that you're devoted to the spread of light and knowledge, and therefore therefore, by no extrapolation, does Hindustan or Hindu, come into this religious neutral equation. And that's why I was smiling at the interpretation which Dr. Swami was trying to put onto it.
Dr. Swami, have you got into too complicated an interpretation? Do you want to just reconsider what you said there, because you're on a bit of thin ice tonight?
I'm asking him on the beating of the retreat on Republic Day, end of Republic Day celebration. The song that is played last is Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara. Now, which Hindustan is he referring to? The song is referring to is, of course, we owe it to the poet Iqbal to have formulated that. Now, Hindustan is used in Hindustan Times. The Hindu word is used even in the most secular newspaper of our country called The Hindu. Hindu was originally not a religious term. It came to be associated because 80% of India is Hindu. The religion
Mr.
of Sanatana Dharma.
Mr. Tiwari raises his hand. I have a question too, but I'll let Mr. Tiwari go first. Yes, Mr. Tiwari, go ahead.
May I just remind Dr. Swami that the person who wrote that song, Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara, ultimately went away to Pakistan, which was, of course, a great tragedy. The poet Iqbal that you refer to. And insofar as the terminology Hindustan Times or the Hindu is concerned, you would agree that they are all pre-independence institutions or pre-independence publications. Once the Constitution of India came into effect, in fact, this was debated by the Constituent Assembly, and you are you're more aware of that than me, Dr. Swami, that the framers of the Constitution deliberately chose a religious neutral name for this country so that the multicultural, multilingual, multi-religious ethos, the whole idea of India as a multicultural entity could flower and blossom.
But this is exactly what today Mohan Bhagwat wants to go back on, and I strongly suspect, Subramaniam Swami, I strongly suspect that you have now, Dr. Swami, let me complete. I strongly suspect that you have, in the course of the last few minutes, acknowledged mentally that there are certain very clear flaws in your line of argument. You do realize that what Mohan Bhagwat is trying to do, let me complete, sir, you do realize now that what Mohan Bhagwat is trying to do is that he wants to make a blanket reference to all Indians as Hindus. Now, Dr. Swami, in addition to the 800 plus million Hindus in India, there are 138 million Muslims, there are 24 plus million Christians, there are 19 million plus Sikhs, there are 7 million plus Buddhists, there are 4 million plus Jains, and more than 7 to 10 million people belonging to other faiths. Now, how does that make us a Hindu nation? How does that make us a Hindu nation? You just cannot brand everybody as a Hindu. And please, Dr. Swami, please accept this is a deliberately provocative argument that is being put by the RSS chief. You know, Manish Tiwari knows, and I know what he means when he says that all of us, it's a provocative remark. It's the kind of remark that people made when they said that, now that we've come to power, then those in the minorities must understand that they don't determine the way things happen. It's one of those comments, Dr. Swami. You can be perhaps a little open with me tonight and with the viewers as well. People won't grudge you that.
I will tell you that the people who will get provoked are these westernized black Englishmen that we have in our country. The general public is not going to be find fault with this, because even Urdu papers, if you read them, they refer to India as Hindustan. They don't refer to it as Bharat or India. Kindly read it and see for yourself.
Sir,
Number two.
Sir, please,
Number two, let me finish.
Sir, I must counter that. You made an extremely... Sir, this westernized black Englishman comment of yours.
You counter, yes, sir.
Sir, I must counter that. I must counter that. You must let me counter that.
In India...
So who are these westernized...
you counter it after I'm finished. One more presentation. I am telling you that the theory of genetics today has invented the DNA concept for the oneness of people, and they find that all Indians, Hindus, Muslims, Brahmins, scheduled castes have the same DNA.
Sir.
And this has appeared in very reputed journals.
Yes, sir. We are all human.
That means we are either
all human.
Hindus or descended from
We are all human. No, we are all human. Manish Tiwari wants to rebut you, and I think the fundamental flaws present ourselves are being presented in Subramaniam Swami's argument. But I'm going to counter him in just 2 minutes from now. I'll let Manish go first. Yes, Mr. Tiwari. Go ahead.
No, may I just come back on that genetics argument? In fact, Dr. Swami is aware, if you read Nayan Chanda's book on globalization, he says that all of us trace our descent back to a common African mother. This means that the identity of this entire world, irrespective of wherever you live, is African. So therefore, then the whole Indian identity or the Hindu identity, becomes completely sterile and gets subsumed in the entire African identity. But coming back on a more serious note, you are absolutely correct, Arnab. This is a deliberate remark to provoke. In fact, we are trying to fight the battles of the past. The fact is that there are minorities in this country, who would prefer to be left alone and allowed to progress and prosper, rather than get this feeling of insecurity on a daily basis that there is somebody trying to thrust a majoritarian identity down their throat.
Exactly. And I am quite surprised tonight that Subramaniam Swami, who otherwise very willingly throws himself into the throes of a debate that looks at every angle, is looking at a semi-technical argument now. Dr. Swami, first of all, that whole comment of yours, which I cannot let go unrebutted, where you said there are a number of black, what did you say? Westernized?
Yeah, westernized black Englishmen.
Yeah, I think that's an unfortunate comment for the simple reason that if you were to go through the annals of what people have said in the Supreme Court, all of you keep talking about what Justice Verma said in his 1995 judgment. In 2003, and I'm sure the very eminent Justice J.S. Verma would not be spoken about in the derogatory terms you have just used to describe others who disagree with your argument. Justice Verma said the same judge who delivered the 1995 judgment, which Subramaniam Swami you like to quote, was Justice Verma, who 8 years later said that his observations were being deliberately misinterpreted by politicians. I presume politicians like you, Subramaniam Swami. And he said, in fact, and I quote, he said the politicians, he said, and I quote, the politicians who are practicing or using Hindutva to their advantage, presumably people like you, Dr. Swami, are misconstruing, presumably like you, and misusing, presumably like you, the judgment. Yes, sir.
May I tell you, I never quoted J.S. Verma. You quoted him.
But he goes against your line of thought.
I don't need J.S. Verma to tell me what is the identity of India. The identity of India is of Hindus and those who are born to Hindus or whose ancestors are Hindus. That is the identity of India.
Sir,
just as Cameron says that Britain is a Christian country, or Harvard professor Sam Huntington says that the United States is a white, Anglo-Saxon, English-speaking Christian nation.
No, sir, you are wrong. Sir, if you take the context of America, Dr. Swami, there again you're on thin ice. Manish Tiwari wants to rebut you, but before that, you take the American example. Dr. Swami, what are you saying? You are talking that Bhagwat line where you say we are all descendants of Hindu culture. Now, many Americans are descendants of a Judeo-Christian culture. But that is not the governing ethos of the American state. It is the separation of church and state. Subramaniam Swami, you should know. Manish Tiwari also wants to rebut you. Yes, Manish Tiwari. I think Subramaniam Swami here now is on very thin ice.
No,
I
just wanted to point out to Dr. Swami that this argument or this disingenuous argument that all minorities are descendants of Hindus has in fact created enough trouble in this country already. There was a point in time in Punjab when the BJP and the RSS used to repeatedly say, that the Sikhs have descended from the Hindus. While that may be correct, but the Sikhs are a separate identity and they absolutely are very proud of that separate identity, and they do not want to be reminded of their ancestry. They branched off and decided to follow a separate faith, and that separate faith gives them that identity, and in a secular state like India, it gives them equal rights. As every other community, more so the majority community. So therefore, I think, we should bury these debates of the past, move on towards economic growth and prosperity. Nothing is going to come out of these identity arguments.
How do you bury it? How do you bury it, Manish Tiwari? Is this comment being made by a bystander to our political system?
You bury it. You bury it by ensuring that people who are in responsible positions in the public domain, do not unnecessarily raise these controversies which create a specter of insecurity around this country until and unless. And I caveat that by saying unless and until there is a deliberate orchestrated reason to do that.
Maybe, majoritarianism. Look at the words here. Majoritarianism. Right? The kind of thoughts which Golwalkar expressed in his book, A Bunch of Thoughts, when he said the newcomers should bring about a total metamorphosis in their life attitudes and take a rebirth, as it were, in that ancient national lineage. The points of view of Golwalkar on these issues, Subramaniam Swami, you must understand, even in 2014, we know were never in agreement with the points of view of Ambedkar. Which point of view did we adopt? Which point of view did we adopt? Subramaniam Swami, Golwalkar's or Ambedkar's?
You have not read Ambedkar.
Sir, I know what Ambedkar said.
Ambedkar says exactly what Golwalkar says. You have read Ambedkar.
Sir,
you don't know what Ambedkar has written about the unity of the culture of India.
Sir, I am sorry.
I have quoted it in my book. If you don't want, you please read my book on Hindutva and national renaissance. You will find a full quotation.
I respect your views. You have a right to have your views.
But with the greatest of respect, Ambedkar very well.
But with the greatest of respect, I don't think you know Subramaniam Swami. I don't think you even know how Ambedkar defined a secular state. How can you challenge me when you don't know how
Come
Ambedkar...
on. What did he say? What did Ambedkar say? All Muslims should go to Pakistan. That's what he said.
Sir, what he said?
Have you forgotten?
Sir, what he said?
You want to create Pakistan? All Muslims, there should be a population transfer.
Sir, why
That's what Ambedkar said.
Why do you want to create this
why you are quoting Ambedkar?
I'll quote Ambedkar. I'll quote Ambedkar and prove you wrong. Ambedkar said, and I quote, he defined a secular state. You don't know how he defined a secular state? He said, that is a secular state. Yes, Manish Tiwari, I'm coming to you. It does not mean that we shall not take into consideration the religious sentiments of the people. All that a secular state means, I repeat, all that a secular state means, is Ambedkar's words, not mine nor yours, Subramaniam Swami, is that this parliament shall not be competent to impose any particular religion upon the rest of the people. And he went on to say, that is the limitation the Constitution recognizes.
Only religion in the world which says all religions lead to God is Hindu religion. Islam doesn't say that. Christianity doesn't say that. The most secular religion is Hindu religion.
Sir, if the RSS is wedded to the views of MS Golwalkar, why should we not believe that going by his writings, what Bhagwat is advocating is a Hindutva based on the principle of majoritarianism? We're getting a challenge from Manish Tiwari. Yes, Manish Tiwari.
Mr. Goswami, if I may come in for a moment, if Dr. Ambedkar was so convinced about the efficacy of Hinduism or Hindutva as a way of life, why did he in his last years convert to Buddhism? He was apparently so disillusioned,
I will tell you why.
By the entire...
I will tell you why.
No, allow me to complete.
Let him complete.
No, allow me to complete, Dr. Swami. Allow me to complete. I didn't interrupt you.
Okay, go ahead.
He was obviously so...
Oops, one second. Manish Tiwari's line is frozen for just a minute. We are going to wait.
That is not an RSS conspiracy, yeah?
That is not an RSS conspiracy. We can take it forward, sir. I think, sir, that, you also need to reconsider your line of argument. You're so wedded to your line of argument.
No, mine is a highly developed intellectual argument.
Sir,
can you contradict the fact that the only religion in the world which says all religions lead to God is Hinduism?
Sir, can you contradict the fact that...
You're a brown Englishman.
Can you contradict the fact that the history of Christianity in India is known to date back to the 1st century AD, when St. Thomas is supposed to have visited the country? Being descendants of Hindu...
What did Christianity do? What did Christianity do in Goa?
Sir, being descendants... Manish Tiwari is coming back to the debate.
Have you forgotten that?
I am coming back to the point. Manish Tiwari will...
May I?
One second. Manish Tiwari, go ahead, please. I just want to complete one point to Subramaniam Swami before you come in. Being descendants of Hindu culture does not take away from the fact that religious communities in India have had their own distinct identities for hundreds of years. without your or anyone's permission. Subramaniam Swami. Now Manish Tiwari will come back.
Religious identity. Religious identity.
Now, may I just come back to the same argument I was making earlier when the line got frozen?
Go ahead.
And that argument was that if Dr. Ambedkar was so fascinated by the Hindu faith, why did he in his last years convert to Buddhism? And number two, to Dr. Swami's point, that, Hinduism is the only religion which says that all paths lead to God. Well, my little study of other religions or comparative study of religions makes me conclude, well, that's exactly what all other religions say. So therefore, in fact, even if you're an agnostic or even if you're an atheist or a non-believer, you may believe in a supernatural power, and that supernatural power, could be an alternate for God as we know it. So therefore, this is a completely disingenuous argument, Dr. Swami, that Hindu religion is the only one which says that all paths lead to God.
I think we give an opportunity for Mr.
If you as a Muslim said that, you would have been killed by now.
Sir, Dr. Swami, please reconsider your words.
Apostate.
What you are trying to do, sir, what you are trying to do is that you are trying to put argument after argument to say there is a hierarchy of religions and Hinduism sits at the top. There is never a hierarchy of religions. These are matters of deep personal faith.
The most secular religion in the world is Hinduism. The only secular religion.
Dr. Subramaniam Swami, do you believe or disbelieve in the concept of a hierarchy of religions in India? Do you agree or disagree with the idea of a hierarchy of religions in the country?
No, I don't. I believe all religions lead to God.
So if you just contradicted what you just said. You just completely contradicted what you just said.
Says. How can I contradict?
So do you not believe what you said 5 minutes back?
Hinduism says. Islam says ours is the only religion.
So why do you need this?
Everybody else is a kafir.
Okay, here's the question. Why
Christianity says you're seized by the devil.
So when you said India first, when your government got elected with the idea of India first, was this the idea of India? Of India first?
Well, we certainly want an Indian identity, which is the Hindustan identity of all Hindus, as well as those who
an identity in which you believe that Hinduism stands above all other religions in terms of openness.
That is a problem. You use these words interchangeably.
I am not. You are confused.
Sanatan Dharma. Say Sanatan Dharma.
Sir, I'd say Hinduism. I'd say Hinduism. India is also, suppose somebody asks you, India was also home to one of the oldest mosques of the world in Kerala. Built around 600 AD, just 7 years after the mosque in Medina. So just as Hinduism has deep roots, allow me to complete. Just as Hinduism has deep roots.
Mosque is not a religious place.
Sir, just as Hinduism has deep roots in India, history of Islam.
Which can be demolished anytime. They do it in Saudi Arabia all the time.
Sir, are you not being insulting, demeaning, patronizing and disregarding the roles of other religions in this country?
Mr. Goswami.
Building a composite
No.
And is this the idea of India first that you voted with? I think Sir Manish Tiwari is coming back.
I am also saying they lead to God.
Sir, Manish Tiwari is coming back.
Mr. Goswami, I just wanted to make two arguments. You see, if you look at the secular conception of the Indian state, it only lends itself to two interpretations. The first interpretation is the strict separation of the church and the state, and the second interpretation is Sarv Dharm Sambhav, which is equal respect for all religions. Under no circumstances does it even procrastinate or assume that there is one religion which is supposed to have supremacy over the others. And to Dr. Swami's point about mosques regularly getting demolished in certain countries, may I point out to him that it is the party which he represents which demolished the Babri Masjid / the Ram Janambhoomi temple. So therefore, if there is anybody who's assaulted the concept of secularism the most in this country, it is unfortunately the party which Dr. Swami belongs to.
Sir, you want to respond to that, or can you take my next question? I have a next question.
I do. I would say, Mr. Manish Tiwari, you seem to have forgotten the Constitution. Please read Article 25 and 26. It says, subject to morality, public health and public order, all shall have freedom to practice religion. Now, if there is something which contradicts morality, if something which contradicts public order, if something that contradicts public health, the state has a right to intervene.
Subramaniam Swamy.
No, so what contradicts morality? What contradicts? Hey, 1 second, Mr. Goswami.
No,
what contradicts public morality? What contradicts your public health? What contradicts? So therefore, all the caveats that you've put, what is contradicting it?
Sir,
I am telling you that today the government of India and the state governments together run 44 lakhs temples in our country. Is this a secular activity?
Sir, it is no surprise today that you are in agreement with Mohan Bhagwat. In fact, you have gone much further.
I am 100% in agreement
you
with
have
them.
gone much
I've
further.
always been in agreement with
I'm
RSS
telling you,
you
may be in agreement, you can also be completely wrong at the same time. You have gone much further to promote your brand of majoritarian politics by claiming in a newspaper article in July 2011 that non-Hindus who refuse to acknowledge their Hindu ancestry cannot be elected representatives. You have said this in a newspaper article. So I have 3 counters for you.
Yes, I have.
First, which you dodged. Is an acknowledgement of a Judeo-Christian background a precondition for electoral rights in America? Yes or no? No.
So what?
So what? Is an acknowledgement of an Anglican background a precondition for electoral rights in Britain?
I don't look at other countries to decide what my country should look like.
And here's the crunch question. Why should a certain religious ancestry be the basis for someone's citizenship? Someone's voting rights? Or an elected representative? Sir, this point of view, nobody in India will buy that argument, sir. Nobody in India will buy that argument.
I will explain. First of all, I said that those who do not acknowledge their Hindu ancestry, they should not be given the vote. That's what I said, number one. And the reason I said it is,
sir, you said,
Pakistan was created on, wait a minute, let me finish. That's what I said. I said that those who do not acknowledge their Hindu ancestry should not be given the right to vote. And the reason I said it is
which means
that
they cannot be elected representatives. I mean, what can...
Now, let me finish. You're a little worried now.
Sir, on 3 points you got caught.
Pakistan was created on the principle that those Muslims who cannot have anything to do with Hindus must get a separate country. So I am saying that I am willing to own the Muslims by saying that your ancestry is Hindu, so we are one family. But I am saying that those who don't acknowledge that, they are people who ought to have gone to Pakistan.
May I, Mr. Goswami, come in for a moment?
Yes, quickly, before we close.
May I come in for a moment?
Yes, you can, Mr. Tiwari.
May I remind Dr. Swami that if he was to just look at Pakistan, what theocracy and what fundamentalism has done to that country. It has almost unfortunately become a failed state. And number 2, the person who created Pakistan in the name of religion, the entire two-nation theory, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, you read his first speech, in fact, the man seemed to have become a born-again secularist. His first speech to the people of Pakistan was that all people of all faiths will have the right to be able to live equally in Pakistan. Unfortunately, it could have been chicanery, but that's what the man had said. Maybe he didn't live long enough to see that dream realized. So my question to you is, hang on, my question to you is, do you want to make India into another Pakistan, Dr. Swami?
Not at all.
And has Najma Heptullah, one second, follow up.
I don't want India to be anything but a democracy.
Sir, has Najma Heptullah, who's the union minister in the Narendra Modi cabinet, acknowledged that Hindustan is the nation of Hindus? Has she acknowledged that all her ancestors were Hindus?
Nation of Hindus and those whose ancestors are Hindus.
She has said all her ancestors were Hindus.
I'll have her DNA tested to prove it.
Sir, this is absolutely ridiculous. I think we are going to levels which we should not go to. Sir, please. Sir, you understand this is pure majoritarian.
Mr. Goswami,
pure majoritarian.
Mr. Goswami, ancestors are Hindus.
Sir, I think...
Mr. Goswami, allow me to come in for a moment. This is the most amusing argument because, in fact, the heathens, would predate the Hindus also. So, therefore, essentially what Dr. Swami is trying to say by making that ancestry argument is that all of us are heathens, at the end of the day. Because the fact is that there was a form of civilization that existed in this country, even before Hinduism came. So therefore, if you go by the logic of ancestry, then there's something which predates
So
Hinduism.
how did you
also,
not
Dr.
read
Swami.
Article 1 of the Constitution, Dr.
So
Swami?
therefore,
I mean, you and I can disagree on everything else, but I'm very surprised. Even if I say that you have your own prejudice in the matter, how did you skip Article 1 of the Indian Constitution? I mean, you and Mr. Bhagwat.
But which says, no, there's nothing contradictory. That
Of
is
course
about
there
the
is.
Republican
Of
identity.
course, you have not even read the
I am talking
article.
about a cultural identity.
Sir, nowhere
That
does
is
the
a citizenship question.
Sir, you prove
Anybody,
to Sir, you prove to
Sonia
me
Gandhi has got
now.
no
Okay, then you
Hindu
prove.
ancestry.
Okay,
She
then
can
you
be a
prove to me
citizen
now,
of
Subramaniam
India if she
Swami.
wants to be.
Sir, you prove to me now, or you say I'm wrong. Okay, nowhere does the Constitution, which in my view is the document that defines the Indian state and which is the guiding book for the function of an Indian democracy. For you, it may not be. For you, it may be Mr. Golwalkar's books. Nowhere does it mention the word Hindustan. That is my view. Now you contradict me.
Well,
contradict
it doesn't need to say Hindustan.
now you say it
because
doesn't need to say.
The Constitution is a body for giving the foundation for the laws of our country.
So we are now
And
subverting
there
the Constitution as well.
No, there's nothing. You must know what a constitution is, Mr. Arnab Goswami. You must know what a constitution is, and therefore it defines citizenship, and therefore it has got nothing to do with culture, except that some cultural aspects of Hinduism, like banning cow slaughter, promotion Sanskrit, uniform civil code, these are all parts of the constitution.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, it is part of the constitution.
Absolutely. Your political side may make you say that. Your legal side will disagree.
No, so
I will
therefore,
ask you later whether your moral side agrees with your own argument.
So therefore, Mr. Goswami, may I come in for a moment? So therefore, Mr. Goswami, notwithstanding, all those specific features of Hinduism, which or Hindutva, which Dr. Swami referred to, which are a part of the Constitution, the framers of the Constitution deliberately decided that we would have a religion-neutral identity. So therefore, the identity of India is Indians, or the identity of India of Bhartiyas is Bharat. It is not Hindustan.
Bharat is the name of a king, by the way.
Well, there is no distinction. There's no distinction between a republican identity and a cultural identity, Dr. Swami.
Sir, India...
Bharat is the name of a king.
Sir,
it's not the name of an area.
Subramaniam Swami and Manish Tiwari, this question goes out to all our viewers. If the government came under the promise of India first, is the concept of Bhagwat endorsed strongly by Subramaniam Swami tonight? Does it represent the India first that you voted for, if you did vote around that slogan? That question goes to everyone. Or should the BJP reconsider or take a clearer position on that? Subramaniam Swami and Manish Tiwari, I thank you for joining me on debate number 1 on the Newshour tonight.